a Just Us Lesbians production. Hey y'all, I know, oh my gosh, I know I've been away for months. But you know what? Thank you so much for your patience because I know that while we're out in hiatus, you guys have been listening to the Taco Stand podcast. Did you all know that we've hit more than 1,000 listens across all the podcast platforms? From all of us here at Just As Lesbians, we want to say thank you for tuning in, thank you for letting us be ourselves, and thank you for embracing our vulnerability. We are beyond grateful for your incredible support. With that said, we're back with an exciting new series where we're highlighting amazing lesbian couples from our community. I've been so eager to share this episode with you, and I'm thrilled that the moment is finally here. I know we're down to the wire here for 2024, and I can't let the year go without releasing one more episode and being with you all. I'm looking forward to 2025 and sharing more stories from our lesbian community. Without further ado, here's Carol and Lucy. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be a postscript in the end, so make sure you listen all the way through. Okay, Carol and Lucy, thank you both so much for joining the podcast. This has been a dream of mine and a dream come true to have you both. I think I've told you both before that the primary reason that I created this podcast was inspired by you both stories. So I'm more than honored to have you both and to be finally, making this into a reality is just wonderful to see. So thank you both. Thank you for taking the time, and I'm excited to dive right in.
Okay. Well, I think it's amazing that you got the idea and then pulled all this together. I mean, you're an incredible person. I just want to get that on tape.
On record.
On record.
I appreciate that very much. Okay, so I think what we want to do first, because everybody, I'm sure, is dying to hear what you both have to share. But I think the first thing we want to do is introduce ourselves.
Okay, my name is Lucy, and I'm 87 years old, and moved to San Antonio. I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, and then after I got married, I was married for 15 years and have 4 kids, and moved to California because my husband got a job out there. I then moved. We got divorced, and because I was gay, but I didn't discover it until I was like 87. No, I was actually in my 40s. And the silly thing is that he was a professor at Stanford, and I had no one to talk to. Like, this was in the 70s, the early 70s. And I ended up at the Women's Center at Stanford for Stanford students. And there was a gay group there that 2 women from the community ran. And I entered it. I said, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know. There wasn't even a word for it before when I grew up. And so I joined one of these groups, and these women were just great. Here I was, a 40-year-old sitting among Stanford students and graduate students. But I didn't care. I was desperate,
Yeah.
I had no one to talk to about this. One morning I woke up and my husband was next to me, and I said, Jimmy, I think I'm gay. And he said, uh-huh. And he got up dressed and went to work.
Oh my gosh. I think that's I mean, I don't want to stereotype, but I feel like that's a classic guy who just doesn't listen. Like, okay, she's going on and on about something.
I know, and I was like this. Anyway, so I called my best friend Helen, and I said, Helen, I think I'm gay. And she laughed, and she said, we've known that for years. All your friends know that. What's the matter with you? And I had no idea, except there were clues all along. Like I was telling Carol that when I was a little kid, first and second grade, my mother unfortunately put me in ballet school, my sister and I in ballet school. And I just felt like a clunk. I felt like an elephant trying to jump around. Anyway, we did this big show in the municipal auditorium, and we were little sunflowers. And but I can remember looking at the big girls who were probably teenagers who were on tow, and I was enamored with them. I thought they were the most extraordinary things I'd ever seen, and I fell totally in love with them.
Yeah.
And so, of course, there was no word for it. There was no acknowledgement of a feeling, but I know that from an early age, actually, I was gay. But there was nobody to talk to. The word was banned. Lesbian. Holy cow!
And what year was that when you were doing ballet?
I was maybe 6, 7, so 37 anyway.
Like so pretty early on.
Early 40s.
Early 40s.
Yeah. So as I grew up, going from childhood, my parents put us in a convent school where we boarded, and I was in love with tons of nuns. I was going, oh my God, I can remember that very clearly.
Yeah.
And I had a little girlfriend there too, but everything was a sin, so you couldn't even think about that.
So everything is closeted. You have to hide who you really are.
Absolutely.
But in your 40s, you finally had accepted that within yourself, that I think this is who I am.
Yeah, it was because everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that was all the prejudice against women. Like when I got divorced, it was a time where women couldn't get credit cards. I couldn't get a credit card.
Unimaginable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That was in the 70s or the 60s? Wow.
It was the 70s, early 70s.
Had to have a man approve
everything.
He had to give us a signature. And I did get custody of my kids, but...
oh, you didn't? So after the divorce,
I got custody because I don't think he wanted to do it. And finally, I chased him down. I said, these are teenagers. They're running wild. I can't control this. And you have to be responsible too.
Yeah, right.
So we did that. He was amenable to that. But another kind of funny thing was I took my kids to lunch one day at this little cafe. It was a booth. And I had started a kind of an arrangement with a graduate student at Stanford. She was getting her degree, her PhD in music. And she was from Vassar, and she was totally out,
Yeah.
And I was dating her, and my kids asked me, "Mom, who are you dating? Who is he? Let us know. Can we meet him?" And I went, and one of my daughters said, "It's a woman. It's not a man. Isn't that right?" She guessed the whole thing.
She did, yeah.
And so they asked me to tell them about it. My son, in the meantime, my youngest son was there, and he just slid down in the booth and went under the table.
Oh.
Because we were talking about relationships and all of
and
that.
just got kind of weirded out about it.
Yeah, your mom doesn't talk this way.
Yeah.
So I told them all about it, and they were all excited. They were they were really just great. They were further along than I was about the whole thing. They were really sweet. And they wanted to meet my lover, Joan was her name. And after I told them everything I could, my oldest daughter, Katie, said, "Mom, I have one more question." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And she said, "How do you do it?" And at that point, I joined Philip under the table.
Next question. I'll come back after the next question. Oh, that's funny.
I was totally shocked.
Right. Yeah.
I would never have thought of that.
How old was she at the time?
They were in high school.
Okay.
And Philip was in middle school. And
so she was old enough to be
I did
thinking
not answer the question, believe me.
Yeah, I bet not.
I said, figure it out yourself.
Yeah. What about you, Carol? Let's hear from you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm very, very different start in life. I'm from New England, Massachusetts, so no Texas stuff.
Okay.
I'm a Yankee.
Used to the cold?
Not
anymore.
No, that was in my early life.
And how old are you?
Oh, I was born in 1943.
Okay.
So how old am I? 81. I'll be 82 in the end of this coming January.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I mean, again, like Lucy, there was nothing. There were no examples out there. There was no one representing. It was. I mean, I was just me. I was definitely a tomboy. I never played with dolls. I just, I was always a cowboy or a Robin Hood or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't really date in high school. I would be attracted to girls or women or, college students my age, the females. But I just thought it was because they were such wonderful people.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Right.
It was them. I my gosh, they're so. And again, growing up at that time, being gay was a crime, as I said, and a mental illness. The Psychiatric Association labeled it a mental illness.
Wow.
So it just didn't enter my mind. But, I did start dating after, in college. During college.
This was in the 70s or
in the 60s.
In the 60s.
Early 60s. I graduated from high school in 1961. So, I did what I thought was expected of me, but I really wasn't interested in getting married. And, I liked them all right.
Yeah.
I would have relationships, but they sort of didn't go anywhere. But in the meantime, I was like, noticing my girlfriends were really great people.
Yeah.
And finally, I ended up going to Europe, and I met someone my age who was from San Francisco, woman.
Nice.
Andrea was her name. And we traveled together for a while, and then I was, I really, really liked her.
Yeah.
And after that, she went back to San Francisco, and I went back home, and we corresponded, and I decided I was going to move to San Francisco.
Oh, to be with her. Yeah.
Yeah, although she was basically straight, but she knew, she was kind of a flirt, like she knew. But anyway, so that's why I ended up in San Francisco.
I see.
So,
and which part of Europe did you travel? And was it just, to travel around the world? Was it like a gap year?
I started off in Germany because my sister and her husband were stationed there.
Okay.
And then I met Andrea in Munich.
I see.
And she had been traveling around. I don't know. Anyway.
That's amazing that she's also from the U.S. You're from the U.S.
We met in Munich. We ended up hitchhiking with a couple of guys we met in Munich, one from Mozambique and the other one from Belgium.
Wow.
And we hitchhiked all the way across to Spain, down Spain.
And that's a word you don't hear now, hitchhiking.
Oh no, yeah, I wouldn't do it now.
No, right? Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, and we ended up renting a little house on the Costa Brava, I think it's called, the southern coast of Spain, for $35 a month, a whole house.
Wow,
Anyway, but
that's another thing you won't hear now.
no, no. We came back. I went to San Francisco because I was like, following my dream, but
Right.
that didn't go anywhere. We're still friends. We're still in touch with each other. And I went to the San Francisco Art Institute when I was there. It was in the 60s, and the hippie thing was starting, and it was at the Art Institute. And again, thinking, well, trying to have relationships with guys, but not really into it.
Right.
But not, I mean, they were friends. I liked them.
Yeah. Sure. Yep.
But
it just didn't feel.
yeah, and after a while I started to think, maybe I should look at this.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. Right. Something's
off. And so I ended up going to this place in San Francisco called the Center for Special Problems.
Oh my God.
That's literally the name of it.
Center for Special Problems.
I figured I had a special problem.
Oh my gosh.
It was group therapy. And anyway.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know how it happened, but eventually I just realized, I should look more closely at this. I don't remember how. Oh, I started working at the main post office.
Okay.
And there were these other women we were working in the back, and the packages coming in, and I started to notice some of the other women working there. And one thing led to another, and I got to, there was a whole lesbian community there.
Yeah, right.
We didn't use the word lesbian then, though.
Yeah.
That came later. And I mean,
there was no word for it.
There was no word for it.
There was no label.
But then as I got to be friends with them, I found out about the bars. There was this bar in the Haight-Ashbury that a lot of the women went to that was that was really good, because it was sort of like a living room, it wasn't a bar kind of.
Oh, okay, like a
bar.
lounge.
Yeah, it was more like a lounge, and people would hang out, and you'd go there every weekend, and you'd meet your friends and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what opened my eyes. And then, of course, at the same time, the women's movement was getting very active.
That's true, like in the 60s.
In the 60s, and then that evolved into the, whatever.
Yeah, however we are today.
Yeah, so I got to a point where then all my friends were only gay women at that point.
Got it.
So I felt like I had finally found myself.
Yeah. And I guess in California, that's, compared to the other states, I would say relatively they're in the forefront of.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, it was definitely, and the anti-war movement was happening at that time, and all kinds of stuff was going on. The whole rock scene, Janis Joplin.
Right.
All that. Women's movement was, women's music was coming up. Chris Williamson and Meg Christian. You probably don't even know these
Actually,
names.
I do not recognize them. But I mean, I pride myself as somebody who likes 70s music, though. But Heart, that's I know them.
Try 60s.
The try 60s, yeah. So
anyway,
did you then? It sounds like you both were in California at the time.
We were both in California, but she was being a housewife and I was being a hippie, basically.
Gotcha. So you two have met from this circles of friends, it sounds like.
Well, later.
Do you guys want to share how you both met?
When was it? 1979. Well, how do I say it quickly? I started going to this ashram, which is a yoga ashram
retreat area.
Yeah, in Oakland.
Okay.
Across the bay. Anyway. And I did have some relationships along the way. I forgot to mention that.
You have some
three or 4 year relationships. Anyway, I ended up in Oakland, and I started going to this ashram for meditation and all that.
Yeah.
And that's where I met Lucy, and we were we had some friends who had formerly been Black Panthers. There were 2 women. They were really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Good
What is
friends
Black
of ours.
Panthers?
What are the Black Panthers?
Yeah, so sorry.
Oh my
I'm
God.
so sorry.
Oh
What is
my
it? You're gonna have to
God.
educate me.
It's the original. I think it started. I don't even know if it did start in Oakland, but there was a big chapter in Oakland. Black Liberation,
I see. Okay,
and they were militant about it.
gotcha.
Although the women we knew,
Uh-huh.
like one was the minister of education,
Mhm.
because they had a whole education program and food in the schools program. And I'm not sure what Tweety did. Do you know what she did? But anyway, but they were, community activists, right?
Okay.
But of course, the media portrayed them as, because the head of the Black Panthers there was,
Huey Newton.
Huey Newton, guns, like,
I see.
don't tread on us.
I see.
of
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
Kind of. But anyway, they were not involved at the time that we knew them. But anyway, they said to each of us separately, "Oh, we're going up Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
We're going up to the Russian River. Would you like to come along? There's someone you might like to meet."
I see. Okay.
And
You were married at the time.
no,
No, I had
You-
been divorced
you'd
for
been
several,
divorced,
for
I
a
see.
year or 2, something like that, and I moved to Oakland also
I see. Okay.
to meditate at this ashram.
Got it. Because you also had a special problem, so you felt like you needed to meditate.
I had a lot of problems. The thing is, that was so weird. I grew up in the 50s and 40s, and there's a movie called That Mona Lisa Smile with Julia Roberts.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
And that's the way I was raised. I was
Gotcha.
raised to be a good wife to an educated
Sure.
wife to a man.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, my mother stopped me from getting a job. And I tried to get a job in high school, and she said, "No, you can't have one."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which,
Yeah. You're not supposed to.
Stepped on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got married and had kids, and we lived in Mexico for a while he was doing research on his dissertation and all of that kind of stuff. And I had a great time. I mean, who gets to live at Stanford? Heck, I'll take it. You know, it was great.
Right.
But we got divorced, and he and then I was running around trying to just find myself. Raising 4 teenagers who were all more or less the same age.
Yeah.
I went nuts.
Right.
And then I was coming out. I had no idea what my identity was.
Mm-hmm.
And so meditation actually did sound like
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't find a therapist
Yeah.
who you were mentally ill if you were gay.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I wasn't mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think.
Yeah.
not sure about that.
So you both met at the ashram.
Yes,
So that's
did.
where we
That's
met.
where we met.
We were introduced by these 2 women.
By the Black Panthers, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then we went up, did a trip up the Russian River, which is north of San Francisco. It's kind of a resort area.
Uh-huh.
And
For gay guys,
spent
it's a super gay place up there.
I see.
mostly for men, but
Mostly for men. Yeah.
but that's what the scene was back then anyway.
Gotcha.
There wasn't much of a women's thing
Uh-huh.
going. So
So how long did you guys stay there at the ashram?
we didn't live at the ashram.
Oh, okay. So it was just a one
It was a
one day
place
event.
that you went. No,
Oh, okay.
it wasn't. It's still there. It's still going on.
I see.
But it has ongoing events.
Gotcha.
At that time, was it nightly? It was almost
Every day.
an evening program. You
Yeah.
do things and
Mm-hmm.
courses, and so we spent a lot of time there. But we lived elsewhere. I don't even.
And every day they had meditation and chants. You could go there and just chill out and meditate,
Yeah.
And they taught you several different techniques of meditation, which before I'd done Zen
Mm-hmm.
and Vipassana,
Mm-hmm.
but this was the one for me.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in the 60s in San Francisco or the Bay Area
Mm-hmm.
of this group and that group of some spiritual something going
Mhm.
on.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, we spent the day at the Russian River with them, and
Erica and Tweety.
yeah,
Mm.
and then
Then
what
you guys
happened?
became friends.
Then we went for a walk.
Oh.
We went for a hike in the Berkeley Hills.
On a
Uh-huh.
a later day.
This was in the 60s, right? I just want to get the time frame. The 70s now.
The 70s.
The
We're in
70s now.
We're in the 70s now, later
Okay.
70s.
In the
yeah,
70s,
Yeah, I
right.
had some relationships before then.
Yeah. So
I
you were
had
both
two.
single
And
at
she
the
did
time.
too, but we were
Mhm.
both single at the time.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. So who was attracted to who first? Like somebody had to have made a move here.
Oh, I think it was mutual.
It was
It was
mutual.
mutual.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was.
that isn't that sweet when that happens. Yeah. That nobody had to like feel each other out.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was very handy. And we had all this, the experience of the ashram together. I mean, we both had that
We
as
had
a common
something in
theme.
common.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
amazing.
haven't told them about getting a degree in architecture.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I keep dropping out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. After I moved to San Francisco, I had dropped out of college, but when I was 31, I decided to go back to college, and I got a degree in architecture. And
That's amazing.
went through the whole thing and got my license. So I was working as an architect at that time.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. And I was with someone who was from, his family was from the Philippines.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. She was gay. Uh-huh.
Oh, we lived together.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh yeah,
How
we
long
were definitely. That
how
one
long were you
lasted
together?
about 4 years, 5
4
years,
years.
something like
Mhm.
that. And yeah, she was so during the time I was in school and
Yeah.
starting my career,
Right.
and she's the one who actually got me into the ashram, not into the ashram, but
Yeah.
that was the connection.
Mhm.
She wanted to go there, and I ended up going there,
And here you both are. That was you guys were in your 40s at the time.
I was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
yeah.
So
what
you're
was I?
6 years younger than I am.
Yeah, so I was still in my late 30s, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, mid to late 30s.
Mm-hmm. So you met that day. You went for a walk.
Well, we went to the Russian River. We came home, and
Uh-huh.
then a day or two later,
We went.
did you call me or did I? You called me. I don't know who called who.
Who called who? Yeah.
It gets all mixed up now.
Right. Yeah. Such a long time ago that it's like
Yes.
something happened where somebody talked to somebody and somebody called and here
Yeah.
we are.
And we
Yeah.
went for a
Uh-huh.
walk in the Berkeley Hills.
Okay.
I remember being concerned about the ticks, because ticks are a big thing in the
Uh-huh.
Berkeley Hills.
Okay. So you can't really get
That
into
was-
the conversation. You're nervous. You're kind of out in a date with this girl that you have a crush on, worried about ticks. On top of all of that.
I was just worried about how to get her in bed. She's
Yeah, she's worried about something else over here.
Well, no, I had more worries than just ticks.
Yeah.
Anyway, one thing led to another. And,
sure did.
and we ended up
Living together.
living together. Oh, I had designed a basement apartment.
Uh-huh.
Someone near the ashram
Right.
had a big Victorian house, and it had a basement, and she wanted to put an apartment in there. So I designed that, and then I ended up moving into it.
Oh,
And that's
amazing.
We moved into that together.
Oh, that's cool.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a really great design. I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was only a block away from the ashram, so we could go there and meditate and do our
Oh,
trip
that's
there.
amazing.
Yeah.
But you guys
It
connected
was so
in that.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a whole community. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people lived around there who were
Yeah.
following the same
Yeah.
whatever. So one thing led to another, and then I had some land in Oakland,
Mm-hmm.
a lot
Mm-hmm.
that had a little one room studio house on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to move in there and remodel it and move in there. So we lived in a trailer on the lot.
Uh-huh. Until you guys get the
And
house
while
built. Yeah.
we did all the work.
You
Yeah,
both did?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we went to Ace
We
Hardware.
remodeled.
That's
and
right.
learned-
You told me about this. Yeah. Uh-huh.
and learned how to do roofing and drywall
Oh, my goodness.
and tiling and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh,
we
wow.
remodeled it.
It sounds like you guys are the classic Home Depot lesbians over here.
I think we
Miss
are.
Tool Belt.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. You guys had built quite, a story together. I mean, literally,
Yeah.
building stuff together, going on walks, doing this
Right.
ashram stuff. So
Right.
how long have you guys been together
Well,
over the years?
we were together at that
5 or 6
time,
years.
5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
So from that, I sold that lot and we bought a house back in
Emeryville,
near
which is-
Oakland, near the ashram,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's if anyone's interested, it's City Yoga. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and we lived in that house until we didn't.
And
What
I-
happened? So you guys were together 5-6 years, it sounds like. And
Yeah,
then it sounds like
and-
you guys had
Yeah.
broken up.
Yeah, well, and we lived in that's the last time we lived together in that house, and I don't know, things just sort of
Mm-hmm.
went astray. But we remodeled that, we worked on that house too and got it all fixed up, and things
I
were
think
going on.
that the main thing was for me is that I needed to really work on myself. I had too much stuff.
Mhm.
I actually had PTSD from the marriage because he was abusive,
Mm.
and didn't know where to get help for that. I
Yeah.
only discovered that later. And I think there were my upbringing was not helpful in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I had to, get a job. I got several jobs, but they were, well, one was with a printing company, and I went in to be the receptionist. And about the third week, I said, "Well, why don't you guys teach me how to run the printing presses?"
Yeah.
And they were great. They said, "We have been looking for a woman to come in and say that." So one of the guys became the receptionist and I became the printer. They taught me how to run the presses.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun. So that kind of thing kept happening to me. And
Yeah.
another friend asked me to run this, one of the first organic store in Palo Alto. So I put in a juice bar, a restaurant.
But
I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
But that was before we got together.
That was before we got together, but I'm just saying that I was trying to work out stuff and
Yeah.
figure my life out and figure out who the hell I was.
Yeah. Right. You were trying out different things to see what's going to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which identity.
Yeah. And usually people do that much earlier in life, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because you had a different path. You went into this housewife mode because this
Yeah.
is what you're
'Cause that
expected of you.
that was the way it was. That just was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, I was working during the time that we were together. I was working as an architect in San Francisco,
Gotcha.
commuting over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to basically pause in the relationship because you wanted to be, you wanted to be on your own, be independent, fully, find yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I don't think it was much of a conscious choice as it was an arbitrary one. I had to do something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
then also I had the opportunity to go to India,
Oh, okay.
and I again in connection with the ashram, the main
Got it.
ashram there
Yeah.
outside Mumbai, and do architecture there for a while, which
Wow.
was fun.
Yeah.
And,
cool.
and
How long
then,
did you live there?
I was just several months. But when I came back, I went to the main ashram in upstate New York
Wow.
to be on staff there, also in the architecture department.
That's awesome.
So, but that was because we were not compatible.
Yeah, you guys sort of like, hey, I have this opportunity to go to India, and you might as well take that while I try and work on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more or less what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was in 1990 that I moved to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. And I was basically a single lady.
Yeah. Carol, you've been everywhere.
Yeah, a few places.
You tasted quite a bit of flavors from all sorts of different parts of the world.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was in upstate New York
Mm-hmm.
in the architecture department there,
Mm-hmm.
and for 9 years. Again, I was basically single. I didn't exclude any relationships, but they didn't come up. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't miss it. I was just kind of doing my own thing. I was, you know, being a professional and
just living life.
Just living life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as identity, I didn't tell people I was gay, but I didn't not tell them. You know, if they had asked me, I probably would have said something. But I also have this thing that I don't want to be put in a box.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't want to be labeled, because as soon as the people do that to you, then they see you through this lens. They don't see you.
Yeah.
And I
They
never,
filter it through that main
Yeah.
identity, and then the rest is sort of, you're 10% this, 10%, 5% this, right? It dilutes all your other characters.
Yeah. Like, oh, that, yeah. Anyway, so from there, I moved to Florida because in 2000, my mother was 91 at the time, and she was living in Florida, and she said, I want you here, being the one of her children who was unattached, didn't have a family. So she said, I want you to come here. You need to take care of me. So I moved to Florida, and 6 months later, she had a heart attack and died.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, it was actually, if it had to happen, we had lunch on a Friday. She wanted to go to Red Lobster because she loved lobster. She grew up. Anyway, so we had a nice lunch. We went to her, she was living in a retirement community at the time.
Yeah.
We went there, and they were celebrating birthdays, and the next day I got a phone call from the place where she was living. It was a retirement community kind of set up.
Yeah.
And they said, your mother's been taken to the hospital. I said, oh, okay. So I drove over to the hospital, and I walked in. I said, I understand my mother was brought here. And the nurse looked at me, and she said, oh, okay, wait a minute. And then the pastor came out, and I went, oh, God.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew.
Yeah.
But I was so grateful that I had a really good day with her the day before.
Yeah.
We had lunch. We had we were civil to each other,
Yeah.
which wasn't always true.
Yeah.
Because she was, could be.
Was she disapproving of your lifestyle choice?
We never talked about it.
Yeah.
I think
She
she
was.
I think she knew.
They know, but they don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some parents are like that. Like, let's not talk about it. I
Oh
get it.
my God!
Yeah.
Yes, she was
Yeah.
like that. Like I had a locket, and I was visiting her at her in their community. We were having lunch with a friend of hers, and her friend said, "Oh, what's in your locket?" And my mother said, "I don't want to know." She was like that. Don't tell me.
Yeah. Right. They don't want to get upset, or they don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. They love you. Of course they do.
Yeah.
It's just, that side of you is something it's hard to get over.
Yeah.
At the time, especially, I can just imagine. Yeah.
She was.
Well, it's interesting because, on the other hand, I told my mother, she came to visit me in California. And I told her that, I said, Mama, I'm gay. And she burst into tears, and she went to my kids who were in high school and was crying on their shoulders, and they were going, hey, it's fine. And but interestingly enough, she went through it and got over it, and then took a trip across the country with someone I was with at the time. They
became friends.
My relationship at that time drove my mother back to Texas. And they went across the border in Laredo and had a good time, and did things that my mother had never done before.
That's awesome.
And so after that, it was cool.
Yeah.
She never mentioned it, but she wasn't denying it.
Right.
Like Gilda did.
My mother.
Carol's
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
So I was lucky on that side. All of my family went cool.
Yeah.
Especially my kids. They were really good.
They were
in fact,
supportive.
one of my daughters was a senior in high school at the time, and she asked her English teacher if she and this girlfriend of hers could do research on being gay.
Wow.
So they got permission from the principal, and he said, yes, do it. So they experimented, holding hands, putting their arms around each other, giving each other little kisses and stuff like that. And then they were writing papers on it.
Yeah.
Like
their
what was the
experience.
reaction of other people to our behavior.
Wow.
It was really way out there.
Yeah.
And the fact that the high school said, yes, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they quit, though, because they were walking down a main street in Palo Alto. And this old lady was driving a car, and she saw them holding hands, and they saw her go like that, and she almost ran into a telephone pole.
Oh my
And
gosh.
They said, we can't do this anymore because somebody could get hurt.
Yeah.
But that was so cool,
Yes,
it was braver than I had ever
Oh.
done,
Well, I think they look up to you and think, my mom's being brave, I should be too. So
Could be.
that's how I see that.
I would just add that during my time in San Francisco back then, it was, when the whole gay movement was coming up. Harvey Milk was elected to the Board of Supervisors.
Wow.
I remember vividly seeing Dianne Weinstein, after the assassination.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the movie, but I saw it on TV.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the candlelight
Yeah.
march was in that. You know, all that stuff was going on at that time.
I was just going to say you were like right there in the beginning of the time with Harvey Milk and San Francisco. Castro,
Yes.
in
Yeah,
that
and then the
area.
whole AIDS movement, and oh my God, the AIDS quilt at the Moscone
I
Center.
mean, I was doing counseling or volunteer work at an AIDS clinic in Berkeley at that time. No, it was actually later. I'd gotten some. I finished my education at California Institute of Integral Studies, which is in the Haight, which kind of overlapped with all of that. And then went on and studied neurolinguistics. And I was really, but by that time, I was 60. So by 65.
You finished school when you were in 65.
And I was developing a clientele at that point. But I thought, might as well just take Social Security and back off a little bit. Because I'd been working really hard between when we broke up and when we got together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're jumping back and forth in decades, but
yeah, sure. I think our audience can kind of picture, the journey that you both did before,
and then the relationship, and then 30 years of not being in communication with each other.
30 years.
Yeah.
No communication.
32.
32.
We figured it out.
You did the math.
Yeah, we did the math.
Yeah.
So, but when you guys broke up, there was like no, I mean, obviously it was hard, it was harrowing, but there were no hard feelings of bitterness, resentment.
None.
It sounded like,
not really.
Yeah.
Right.
Carol's like, not really, but I was.
Well, there were rough patches,
right.
and we had some things. In fact, that brings us to today. And when I got back with her and called her, 2.5 years ago, something like that.
So 32 years separated, no word from each other, not writing letters, no, obviously no social media to keep up with each other,
no texts,
no texts, right?
And no other relationships. I don't know about you.
Me, and I wasn't even interested. I was, doing my thing. In fact, it's interesting. She was an architect at the ashram in South Fallsburg, in New York. I went there for a month-long meditation retreat where we were silent for 30 days, if you can
I've heard
believe it.
those.
And we didn't really talk to each other even then.
So you saw each other at that same
Oh, yeah.
for 30 days
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
in
but
the same event, but you didn't talk. Obviously, can't talk, right?
right. But it's a big campus. You know,
Okay.
it's like,
But did you both see each other there or no?
yeah,
You did.
Uh-huh.
I see.
But
we
we-
had lunch together a couple of times.
I feel like that's very poetic.
yeah.
I think not being able to see each other for however long that was, and then seeing each other in a 30-day no talking, retreat.
Well, I was on staff doing architecture, so I was busy all day.
Doing things.
And
Yeah.
I was busy trying to be silent.
Right. Trying not to talk.
That's
I'm
right.
sure you were excited to see her after so many years, and here she is, but can't talk. So I feel like there's something so poetic at sitting down having lunch,
With
opposite each
medical-
other, can't talk. And I feel like, the not talking probably even, the senses probably did talk to each other in a way,
Probably. It was strange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, I was living there, so after a month, you left and went back to California
Yeah.
or Texas. Were you? No, you
I
were
went
still
to
in
California.
You were still in California. So anyway, I was there, and in 2000, I went to Florida to be with my mother, and then of course I inherited the house, and so I ended up living in Florida. And then I decided I wanted to do graphic design instead of architecture, so I took classes in that. I mean, I had sort of been doing graphic design previously, but anyway, so I ended up moving to Sarasota, and that's where I was living. And I had friends in the neighborhood. There was this wonderful group of women, married women, or married or widowed women in the neighborhood. Significant number of them from Croatia or Serbia for some reason. But anyway, and they would have a monthly potluck, so I became friends with them. But I was just totally closeted. And there weren't any gay friends. I really like my friends there. I still do. But I was like, this part of me was shut down.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. And I tried to, it turned out there was a couple of women who were married living not far from me. And I got to know them, and they invited me to some event with, it was other women. It was a political thing, but it was a gay women's thing. But they were not welcoming. I didn't feel included. I didn't feel like, and I was on my own. And it just went nowhere. And I was just being me, didn't want to be labeled anyway. And that was how I was living my life when I got a text one New Year's Day in 2022.
Turn to
It
you,
was
Lucy.
me.
Ooh, text message.
Reaching out.
Yeah, we've progressed.
Yeah, you guys have progressed.
Social media and text.
How did you get her number?
On Facebook.
See, we progressed.
I love that. Social media now.
Something happened to me about a month before I called Carol, and that was, all of a sudden, I went through this thing, and I cried all the time. But it wasn't from being sad. It wasn't from being anything, but I felt like I was flushing out a lot of stuff. Like if you're in therapy, it might be that. I attribute it to a lot of meditation and a lot of self-work that way, watching the mind. And I would just spontaneously cry. My daughters were saying, "Well, how much you cried today, Mom?" It wasn't. The thing is, there was nothing mean or awful about it. It was just that I had to flush this stuff out of my system.
Sure. Yeah.
And I ended up realizing that I needed to call and get in touch with a certain number of people and apologize for being an asshole with them or whatever. And she was on the list. And interestingly enough, I couldn't find the other people. I could only find Carol.
Yeah.
And I
Meant to be.
realized that there was some kind of connection. I had kind of a glimmer that something was going on. So we got in touch. I asked her if she'd if we could talk. And I began the apology, and I burst into tears and said, "You were the love of my life," and I was just sobbing. And I didn't really realize that was going to happen. I knew something was going on with me about it.
Yeah.
And I did apologize, but we and kept saying, "You were the love of my life. You are the love." It was really sappy.
Yeah.
But
How'd you feel?
I was stunned and like, oh, okay.
So when you first got the text message, did you?
I was like, okay,
Yeah.
wonder what she wants. This should be interesting.
'Cause you haven't heard from her. The last time you saw her was at the ashram. Didn't really
Yeah,
talk.
I didn't
that
know.
was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just to add that she had moved from California to Texas and was living in Fort Worth and then moved down to San Antonio.
Gotcha. And you were
So,
still in Florida at
I
the
was,
time you
and
got
I
the
was
text
in
message.
Florida all that time. So we both moved. Well, I moved to Florida around the same time she moved to Texas. Again, just coincidentally.
Yeah.
And
Do you hear any stories about each other, like any news of common friends saying, "Hey, this is what's going on with
No.
Lucy"? So no, you have no idea
No.
at all.
no,
So
It
you got
was-
this text
It
message.
was like jumping off a cliff for me.
Yeah, of course. That's really
And,
brave.
no. Well, yeah, it
I'd
scared
be really
me.
scared. Yeah.
I mean, I just blurted it out.
This was on the phone. So you did text her back to say, "Sure,
yes,
we
let's
can talk."
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was stunned, and I was
I
like,
bet.
I was
but then I
too.
was like, oh, okay,
Oh.
okay,
okay.
That was 2 years ago. Oh my goodness.
And so then Lucy came to visit me in Florida, and we talked about
Getting back together.
getting back. Well, we were together. We were just had after that
Conversation,
initial.
yeah.
We were FaceTiming each other every day.
And we were talking for hours
The
on
technology, right? Like
Yeah.
from like nothingness to like now
Yes.
texting, Facebook, FaceTime.
I know.
the phone. Visits.
Hooray,
I mean,
technology.
Yeah, right. And now
So-
podcast. I mean,
And podcast.
you two are just
Oh my God.
up and coming over here.
sitting around the pool chatting.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. So clearly you moved here now.
Well,
here in
yeah.
San
So
Antonio.
she came to visit. We talked about it. She went with me to one of my potlucks, friends with my friends and stuff. And then I came and visited here in
Antonio.
San Antonio, and then we went to a meetup at Jackie's.
Yeah,
we went
That
to-
was I was just about to ask. So how did you find Just as Lesbians? The technology people that you two are now. you heard about Meetup clearly.
Yeah.
Well, I went to a meeting of women, lesbians over 60 or something like that. Lindsay came to it. I talked to Lindsay. She sat next to me.
So Lindsay's a member of the Just as Lesbians group first, and then
yeah.
had introduced you both.
And I was afraid to go because I was 85,
Yeah.
and I thought I won't fit in at all.
Right.
It'll be really creepy, and
Yeah.
everybody will be 16 and jumping around, and you know.
So what was your first event with the group?
It was a Sunday fun day.
The Sunday Fun Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I met.
And
both
I
of
went
you.
with Lindsay, just gripping the back of everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But she was really nice. And then Jackie, of course, was absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got over being scared, and then I started going to the Sunday fun days.
Yeah.
So that's how we know when I came to San Antonio.
Yeah.
I
to
was
visit
already
Lucy,
going.
She was going, so I went to one of those, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And we still hadn't decided. Florida, Texas, but I had this hit that I was going to sell my house in Sarasota and
just
move to
over here.
Texas because of JUL.
Oh.
Because I saw there was a community there where I could be myself.
Right.
I mean, I love Sarasota. It's a
Sure.
beautiful city.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was 2 blocks from the bay. I mean, it was just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But
But you weren't fully
I
out.
wasn't fully out there.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody around, really. They were all in St. Petersburg, right?
Well, yeah, there was a more active community up in St. Petersburg,
Yeah.
but I didn't know any of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, and but I had a lot going on in Sarasota, but
Sure.
not that wasn't one of them.
The big
things.
part of you, which is you know,
Yeah.
being a lesbian and fully embracing that, you can't really exercise that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I decided that I should move here rather than the
Yeah.
other way around.
And the thing is, I would have
You
been
would have
fine.
moved there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course, to be with Carol. You'll do everything now.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad you guys decided to stay in San Antonio.
Me
though.
too.
Yeah, so I met you 2 years ago. I was just kind of being more active with the group as well. And when you had shared me that story that brought me to tears was the main reason I'm like, I need to do this podcast. I want to do a podcast where I can, you know, hear these stories, capture it, and have it, to be honest, an artifact, right? Like at one point
absolutely.
in the future, we can listen to this and think about the nostalgic times and, you know, the things that have happened between your lives and coming together after 30-something years.
Yeah, it was quite surprising. It was like totally new territory, except that we knew each other already quite well,
Right.
and that was all still in place. But the thing is, I remember things that used to irritate me beyond God knows what.
It came back.
Well, it's all there. You know, it's like our personalities are exactly the same.
Oh.
Our foibles and all of that, and
Yeah.
I don't care anymore.
Yeah, right.
I
Before
grew
it
up.
would bother you, and now it doesn't.
No,
It was just so nice to
none of it.
get together again. And
We grew up.
yeah. Do you guys feel your age? Do you feel like
No.
you're in your 80s?
Well,
Not-
my body does.
Your
but,
body does. Right?
Yeah.
but not.
your
not
mind, your
mentally,
spirit,
no.
Yeah, right.
No, it's like I go every once in a while. I go, what? I'm
Yeah.
81. What?
Yeah.
But
right.
now
That's
just
weird.
a couple weeks ago, diagnosed with osteoarthritis, and I kind of limp around sometimes. And things like that. The body kind of betrays you, but it's like, no, this isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
mean, like there are things in meetup that
You wanna do.
I wanted to do the Habitat for Humanity
Right.
thing.
Me
and
too. I wanted to hammer and saw. We're good at that.
Yeah.
We
I mean,
did that.
clearly you built your own house.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Wow.
So, well, we remodeled that.
Yeah.
But yes, we did. We did a lot. We did all the
On
work.
your own. I think the final question I have for you both is I know that there are plenty of our lesbians that are together and couples in the group. Do you have any advice for them how to, keep the music going?
Well, I would say forgiveness. You know, forgive yourself, forgive the other person.
Yeah.
It's like we're all in this mess together, and I didn't tell you this. We went and visited her brother in Colorado, and a couple of months ago, and he said he got a little bit miffed at Carol because of certain verbal traits she has. And I said, Robert, she can't help it. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, you're right. And we started laughing. And did you hear that part?
You told me about that. I tend to be a little OCD about things.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was correcting Miss
yeah.
Lucy over there. And he thought that was, he didn't, he thought I was
like
wrong. He didn't like it.
Yeah. You're used to it now. You're
Yeah.
like, actually, I missed that. So yeah, that's okay.
But I mean, it's like forgiveness is so powerful, and it's so, we think that we can't do it. I've got to figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. You forgive people all the time, every day.
Yeah.
You step on your puppy.
Yeah.
Or you make mistakes all the time, every day, and you forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
That's true. It's true.
And that's how easy it is. But you get all tangled up in some stupid issue, and like it's just pull that out.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you,
I
Carol?
guess.
Do you have anything to add?
I would agree with that, and just also working on yourself. It takes two to make a relationship, and sometimes we tend to blame the other person or criticize the other person, but you have to look at yourself.
Yeah.
And see what part you play in that.
Yeah.
And
that's a big one.
And learn to let go. It's not that big
Don't
a
sweat
deal.
the big stuff or the small stuff.
The small stuff. Yeah.
Good. All right. Final question for you both. Because this is, every guest in the Taco Stand podcast have to share this. But if you're a taco, what kind of taco would you be, Lucy?
Okay, I would not be a taco.
You wouldn't?
I don't like tacos.
You don't like tacos?
No.
Aw.
But what I would be is enchilada.
Oh.
Enojada.
That's a good
I love those things.
Yeah.
My God.
What's it called?
Enojada. With something about walnuts and pomegranates and this wonderful queso fresca.
Yeah. That sounds really yummy.
It is.
Yeah.
It is absolutely divine.
So not a taco, but an enchilada. What about you, Carol?
Well, I thought about it, and because
it's coming. Yeah.
I'm from New England, and I'm not conversant in all the kinds of tacos. Although one of my relationships back in San Francisco back in the day was a Chicana, Jamie, and we would go to the Roosevelt tamale parlor frequently.
Yeah.
It was named after President Roosevelt, so that's how far back that place went. Anyway, but I really like enchilada verdes, but I thought the question isn't what do you like, it's who would you be?
Yeah, who would you be if you're a taco?
So I thought about it, and I thought maybe it's not traditional. It's a fried avocado taco.
Yeah? That's good.
It's not really authentic Mexican, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And but I really like them.
What about it that makes it you?
It's vegetarian, which I'm not so much anymore, but a large part of my life I was.
Yeah.
And it's flavorful and and healthy.
Yeah. That's what I was just gonna say. Healthy.
Mine is not.
Yeah. But yours is too, in a way. There's some walnut in there. Walnuts are good for your heart.
And persimmons.
Yeah.
Not persimmons.
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate. See? Yeah. I mean, it makes up for all the other stuff that's in there.
Yeah.
It balances it out.
Yes,
No, I
it
like
does.
it. Yeah. Well, good. Thank you both so much for stopping by, sharing your story, being vulnerable with us. I know, to me, I take this as a very, as our first couple series. You guys are kicking it off. We're going to have one of many of these because there's going to be lots of stories within our group that have different kinds of coming together. And for both of you, coming together, coming apart, growing individually, and then realizing 32 years later that this is the one for me. So... incredible story. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Oh,
It
you're
was
so
wonderful
welcome.
talking with you.
Thank you. There you have it, folks. That's Lucy and Carol. I hope you guys enjoyed the story as much as I did. The first time I heard it, I literally cried. Anyway, after the interview, Carol texted me to share something beautiful. She said that when Lucy told her that she was the love of her life, it initially came as a shock. But as she processed it, she realized that she still loved Lucy just as deeply as she had before and wanted to be with her. After so many years of being single, Carol hadn't realized what she was missing until they started talking again. Because they knew each other so well from their past, reconnecting felt natural and effortless. It was comfortable, familiar, and free from all the baggage. Thank you again, Carol and Lucy. I had such a wonderful time with you both. The Taco Stand podcast is proudly brought to you by Just As Lesbians, a meetup group based in San Antonio, Texas. Find us and hope to see you in our next event.